Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Figured might as well do a review on this early 2015 MacBook Pro. And while we're chatting about it, I'm gonna install Windows on this thing. So I upgraded the internal SSD, which was this original 128, and I put a 512 in there. Um, it's a weird brand name, but we'll talk about that drive in another video when we review the actual drive. So, anyways. While I'm at it, I figured, you know what, might as well start reinstalling actually Boot Camp. I had it in here and I was drive testing the drive with Blackmagic Speed Tester, and I thought, well, these aren't even close to where I should be getting. Like what's going on here? And so I thought, well, maybe because I partitioned the drive and I've got a Windows partition and a Mac partition, maybe that's the problem, which could actually do it. However, I discovered that if it is affecting it at all, it's very minuscule amount. So it's kind of like, well, that was kind of not worth undoing all this. So anyhow, for the boot campers out there, they've changed how things get done. Usually we download a USB stick and that'd be a separate deal. Well, now it downloads Windows support software first, and then it'll do its thing. You restart, you start loading the OS. When that's done, it'll start doing all the software for you that you're going to need. But even with this latest version of Windows 10 installer, which is, by the way, has to be an ISO that sits on your desktop on the Mac side to do this. Even with this newest version, which would be years more up to date than my original, you're still going to have a boatload of Windows 10 updates to do, including optional updates that have to be done to straighten out the rest of it, hardware-wise. And then, of course, you've got your Apple Updater program for updating your Boot Camp version and the support and all that for it, and a few of the little things that updates, and you got to go do that too, and all that sort of jazz. It's interesting. What I found even more so interesting was when it came to my Wi-Fi. With macOS Monterey, I can actually connect to my gigabit router, no hassle. But with the Windows environment side, I have to connect to my alternate router that piggybacks off of my gigabit. And it's kind of like, that's kind of dumb. Like, why can't I access my gigabit router if Monterey can do it? Why can't Windows 10? Well, could be because Windows 10 is a lot older than Monterey. That could definitely be, and maybe they just didn't update the drivers enough for it, or maybe I would have to go to maybe Ventura on this thing, with Open Core Legacy Patcher. I don't know, but it's what it is, and it's fine because, if I really, really want more horsepower, I could always connect my Ethernet adapter to this thing. Because, yeah, these things kind of interesting. They don't have an Ethernet port. That's kind of wild. We've got an HDMI port on here on the side. We've got a card reader, a USB-A. On the other side, we have two Thunderbolt 2 display ports. So we can hook up a lot of screens to this thing, even into 4K. And, of course, we've got another USB-A port on the other side here, along with that stuff. And our headphone jack, of course. The built-in camera is 720p, works really well. So, for Mac, it's definitely a way far superior 720p camera, even in this thing, that we even get on modern day Windows laptops that are still stuck at 720p. Meanwhile, Apple's gone 1080p on everything nowadays, right? And the Windows world, I've still hardly seen any at all for laptops in the Windows world that even have a 1080p webcam, which is kind of really sad and disgusting when you think about it, because now the roles are reversed, and now all you PC heads get to crab at the PC world and say, hey, what about a 1080p camera? I'm paying like $3,000 for this laptop, and you just give me 720? You guys suck, which is actually quite true. So we have a Retina display, 13-inch on this model. There's a 15-inch model too that I found for sale, and I'm waiting it out until the price comes down to about where I'm willing to pay, and I know it will. So, but this one I got at Hawk Exchange in North Bay for $200. It's really clean unit. Battery health is like 85%, which is quite amazing for having over 400 cycles on it. So at least I don't have to do a battery anytime soon, which is like total bonus. My last MacBook Air 2015 early model I picked up, got that off of a buddy, and yeah, we had to definitely put a new battery in that one because it was putjade. So yeah, but this one's fine. It's nice and clean inside. There wasn't much for dust bunnies to blow out. Now I will say this, I am definitely going to be repasting the processor in this thing because it really does need it. I've been keeping an eye on my thermals just even for like basic surfing and stuff, and right now to keep the jets a little cool, we got to run 3,500 RPM fixed speed on the fan. So I use a program called Max Fan Speed Control, which is actually quite handy because you can have it set for automatic, which means it just does its own thing as per normal. But we do get access to battery sensor information, the battery itself, ambient sensors, cores 1 and 2 in this case, because it's only a dual core i5 at 2.7 gigahertz, or the core average. I set it at core average. This way you can keep an eye on both at once, and it gives me an average based on both cores. Video graphics is Graphics 6100 Intel Iris. You know, that sort of thing. Any drives that do qualify for being able to be accessible through the little smart system are listed, including our internal new half a terabyte is also there. So I'd say overall, I mean, for an 8x512, it's actually not a bad little setup. Monterey only chews up about 3 gigabytes of RAM, so it still gives you around 5 gigabytes to play with before you start going into swap. Now, I know on the Windows environment, I'm definitely going to hit swap here and there, especially with the games I'm going to be installing, which are going to be like the latest but also very old version of Dungeon Lords, which comes from Steam now. I do have the original on DVD, but no DVD player on this, and I do have an external one, but I don't care. Besides, the original version was a little glitchy. But I'm also going to put Far Cry on there. Gothic 3 I've been getting addicted to recently. My buddy gave me a copy, and I'm like, that's a really cool game. I'm really enjoying it. And the graphics are just nuts. So it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of nice. I like that. But a couple other games. Now, I did find out that Skyrim, in a wrapped situation, where it's wrapped under Polytol Point Toolkit to run on the Mac side, because it is a PC game after all, it will not fire up on this thing. San Andreas and Vice City do, but it does take quite a while before it does fire up, because I have a feeling I'm getting stuck into swap on that side. Yeah, it's kind of like, ugh. I tried Minecraft on here, the newest version of Minecraft, and although it does run, it's a little on the pokey side when it came to fire up, and definitely a little pokey quitting. But amazingly enough, I could get to fabulous graphics setting. And then I decided, well, you know what, let's go fancy and let's, just increase our block count ahead, to I think it was like 15 or 17 blocks or something like that. It gives you a lot more range in your world before things start to vaporize into the render world or de-rendering world. It's a real graphics hog of a game, and it does suck a lot of horsepower and RAM, but it did heat my computer up well over 100 degrees, but it did not thermal shut down like a nuke like it did on my MacBook Air Intel Mac. So I was kind of like, well, that's reassuring. That extra gigahertz per core plus, well, gigahertz plus 1, really does help, but can't handle those kind of thermals. Shouldn't be pushing it that hard. So we're not going to be playing Minecraft anymore on this thing. Surfing wise though, it is fantastic. It does a really good job with surfing the internet. I've got an 8-core ARM-based chipped Chromebook that in comparison, that thing takes so long to load a page on YouTube even, and it's like, oh, is this ever going to happen? Where this thing is like, it's pretty fast. So yeah, new couch surfer too. I'm still going to keep the Asus Chromebook. I am selling my Asus one though. But I am going to keep the Asus one because I still got to learn more and more about Chrome OS, and I have more experimenting to do and whatnot. So it makes a good guinea pig machine for that. Besides, $100 investment, it's going to pay for itself over time anyhow. But other than that, I mean, this machine would be great for doing some light video editing on, because it is more than capable of that. It will take a lot longer to export, obviously, on an Intel Mac than it does on Apple Silicon. So you got to have a little bit more patience for the export, but and all that jazz. When you start applying filters and corrections, it's going to be slower, but that was the Intel age for us, which now you get to see why more and more Apple decided to go with their own chipsets and really make things rock like a mother. Music-wise, got GarageBand on here. Haven't even updated that all the way yet to all the sound files, but I'll get there. But I figured I got 312 gigs on the Mac side, 200 gigs on the Windows side. That's more than enough for what this thing's going to be used for, so, why not? Now, in case you want to know a little bit more about Macs in general, as far as, if you have an older Mac that can natively support Monterey, that ends in December of this year, actually, when Apple chops it off because they're releasing a new Mac OS at some point this year, and they only ever have 3 going on at the same time, okay? So that are going to be fully supported with, feature updates and security. So we will still have probably a couple of good years of security updates left over out of Monterey once they chop it at the end of the year. As far as the Windows 10 people out there, well, Windows 10, you got until October 2025, and that's it. And when they cut it off, even the security updates are going to be cut at that time too. So yeah, you might want to think about getting into Windows 11. And it turns out somebody has managed to get Windows 11 running on these Intel Macs. And I know a friend of mine that got it running full out native. But with Boot Camp, though, it has been done with Windows 11 somehow. But I suspect those exploits are going to be shut down soon enough anyways by Microsoft. So we'll have to get it as long as we can. But Open Core Legacy Patcher can definitely open you up to putting on like Ventura or Sonoma. I would personally not push this thing past Ventura, even if you have 16 gigs of RAM in yours. And speaking of which, I did find out that I can buy motherboards for this thing and go right up to, now I didn't check how many cores it was, but it was like 3 gigahertz base, according to the write-up, for like $200 with 16 gigs of RAM on it, and just a drop-and-go motherboard. And it's like, that's pretty cool if it actually works the way they say it does. But I would even just appreciate a motherboard with 16 gigs of RAM at this point. So anyway, other than that, yeah, you're seeing how you install Windows at the same time as the review. So in my opinion, I think that, we have to look at for what this thing really is and what it's about. Now, it is a MacBook Pro, but I do not consider anything with a dual core processor anywhere near pro level. You're kind of approaching pro level in quad core, but really 6 core and above is more into the pro class. So I don't know why even Apple bothers to call these MacBook Pros when they have dual core chips in them, because they're not that hot in a bag of chips, if you know what I mean. But they are pretty darn good, I'll give them that. Beautiful Force Touch trackpad, beautiful keyboard. You got plenty of ports. It would be nice to see Type-C, but, they never did it back then. So, now they do all Type-C and normal Thunderbolt. By the way, your Thunderbolt 2 ports are only for DisplayPort purposes for video. Because I don't even know if they had Thunderbolt 2 drives at any point in time. I can't remember that far back. There's a lot of stuff even I can't remember over the years, and it's kind of like, well, there's a reason for it. It's old tech that we don't play with anymore generally. Some people still do, though. However, for what this thing has, I definitely nailed it a good 4 out of 5. If you had it as an 8x256 or even a 16x256 or 16x512, you can go up to 1 terabyte in this max, apparently. For storage, and it is replaceable, obviously, because I did, and, well, that's the original 128 gig, so there you go. But you cannot upgrade the RAM. It's soldered on, so keep that in mind. But I would say an easy 4 out of 5 is where I put this on the review side of things. Stay tuned though, I am also going to do Cinebench score tests and some other info for you, and we'll talk about that drive I put in. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.